Hey, it's Mark Ferguson with Invest for More, and I am in northern Colorado, and today we're talking about a town 50 miles to the south by Denver. Thornton actually bought up a ton of land and farms up here in the 80s just so they could take the water from here and ship it down to Thornton. So we'll talk about that. And along with that, a lot of those farms came with houses. And I've actually flipped a couple of those houses, so I'll show you some of those old flips we did. And they're not in very good shape, I'll tell you that. And then I've also got 8 properties I'm gonna drive by that Thornton currently owns right now, and we're gonna see what kind of condition they're in right now. Just to give you an idea of what some government-owned housing can look like. There's a lot of people who think government-owned housing is the way to go, and they may rethink that after seeing some of these properties. And I have not seen any of these, well, I might have seen some of them driving around, but I just picked addresses that were the fastest to get to on my little route when I plugged them into Google. And so we'll see what they are. I'm sure some of these I didn't know were Thornton houses, maybe some I did, but we'll take a look and see what we can find out. All right, love the likes, love the comments, love the shares, love seeing new subscribers as well. We have quite a few properties up here, and I've had water situations as well, trying to start a laundromat and bar and other stuff where we've run into issues. So we'll talk about that too, and how shares of water work in Colorado, because it's kind of crazy. One share of water up here is like $70,000 right now, and that's what you need to build just a regular house. And one town wanted me to bring 2 shares of water to start a laundromat, so it's pretty crazy. All right, we'll drive up here and then see what this first house looks like. It should just be up the road a little bit this way according to my maps. And yes, the thunderstorms are building up again like they do every day. We had hail again yesterday. Oh, and a special treat, the crop duster's out. I was just about to drive off and I saw him flying by. Where'd he go? So I took a slight detour because the crop duster's pretty cool. So I thought I would show that real quick. There's one guy that I think he does all the crop dusting around here. I think Nikki actually knows him, but you always know it's the yellow plane. And man, those guys are pretty crazy. So Thornton bought 21,000 acres in Weld County, different county, and this is from Thornton's page right here. And why do they own these properties? They bought 21,000 acres of agricultural land and associated water rights in the mid-'80s, intending to transfer the agricultural water rights to municipal use. As Thornton grows, it needs to secure water for its future population. In the 1990s, that transfer decree was secured. They still own 18,000 acres of land, primarily in Weld County, with additional acreage in Larimer County, which Thornton has leased for agricultural acquisitions, or since the acquisitions. In 2025, Thornton expects will have met the prerequisites established by the decree to initiate water transfers, which will bring that water to the city of Thornton. And the reason I'm showing this is because they have all these houses that were on these properties, and they've rented them out, or some have just become abandoned. They did rent them out to begin with, and it's just interesting how a lot of people think government housing might be the way to go, and how to get rid of landlords and eliminate them from the picture, because landlords are so evil, as we know. And this kind of gives you a glimpse of what government housing might look like. And something else that goes along with our water is that right there is a oil well they're drilling. So they do lots of fracking up here, there's tons of oil and gas up this way, and they need lots and lots of water to do the fracking. So that's also another reason why there's a shortage of water up here, is because oil and gas need that water. So just a whole lot of different factors going on to make it real tricky. I believe this is the first one. It's really difficult to tell on the map exactly where it is, and the addresses are funky. So that one actually didn't look too bad compared to most of them I've seen. I didn't realize we were gonna drive by this, but this house on the left here is actually the first house I ever flipped with my dad back in 2003 or 2 or something. Paid like $175,000 for it. It's probably worth like $800,000 now, who knows. Here's the next house on our list, And it's hard to tell. It's not in horrible shape. I mean, the roof is okay. You can obviously see the trim is not painted very well. So far Thornton isn't doing too horrible on their houses, but you should see some of the ones I bought here. That may change your mind. I know I've seen some other ones too driving around that are not in stellar condition. Here's one of the nicer Thornton houses. I don't know if anybody's living in there or if it's just abandoned and they just let it go. I'm not sure. I mean, it used to be a pretty cool house, but it's obviously in really rough shape now. Somebody's been mowing it, but it sure doesn't look like anyone lives here. I'm just turning around real quick. It wasn't safe to do so on the highway, so I had to pull in here for sure. I think this is the next one, but the addresses are kind of funky out here sometimes. There's also a house over there, or it could be they're both on the same lot. It's hard to say, but again, and it's important to know, that one actually looks like it's lived in. Obviously it hasn't been painted in 20 years, but there's huge demand for rentals in our area. So it's not like these are sitting vacant because there's no demand. If they were in decent shape and for rent, they would rent immediately, especially out here in the country like this. And there's just a huge shortage of houses up here. And the other house was supposed to be up there somewhere. It's not that modular with a tall silo, I don't think, or it was torn down. I don't know, but I couldn't see that one, so who knows. Okay, so I went back to Google Maps and the assessor, and I found where this property actually was. I did drive by it. It is still there. But they own an entire section of land, which is 640 acres. So the address Google was showing me wasn't quite lining up. Here is that property on Google Maps. You can see what it looks like. And there's another property right there, which if they're occupied, I'm not sure. But I actually know somebody who used to live there and rent from Thornton. And the story from quite a few people who have rented from Thornton is basically, for a few years they had a real good handyman who would fix stuff, even replace windows, painted, did some stuff. But once he left, then almost nothing happens. It's really hard to get anything done or repaired or maintained. Here's an interesting one. This is not City of Thornton, at least I don't think so. Again, the last one was somewhere in that field. I don't see it. Might be gone, or the address is weird. But all of these places I checked to make sure there was a house in public records, and there was a house listed. So at one point, there was a house on them. So I was wrong. That shell was a City of Thornton property. Now that one they probably bought uninhabitable, and it's probably been like that for a while. So that one, I mean, hard to blame them for that one and restoring that one, unless it was a nice property when they bought it. Who knows? But what also is interesting is on the Weld County site, it shows that all of their properties are exempt for the tax account. So I believe since they're a government, they don't have to pay property taxes on any of these properties either. Here is another City of Thornton house, and this one I was told by someone I know that this was habitable. It was rented, 15 to 20 years ago, and since then it was just left to rot away, and maybe they used one of the shops or something to store equipment, who knows. And I showed 8 properties I randomly picked, but I believe there were like 50 to 80 actual properties with houses just in Weld County, and pretty much this is what a lot of them look like. And here we have another one that is lived in, as you can see, and in really, really good shape. And there's someone standing outside, so I won't film too long. I'm also 90% sure this is one as well. I've been told it was one, and you can see it's in amazing shape. And that is also lived in. And here we are at my store. So I wasn't just doing that completely for fun and doing a video. I am on the way to my store, which is up in this area too, so we'll see how it's doing. Oh look, there's a liquor delivery. And yeah, we had record sales last week, partially because of Memorial Day, but never had as much sales as we did last week, so that was cool. I'll try and show that graph. Here is our sales graph for the store, and if you didn't see it before, I have updated it so that it shows sales, gross profit, and net profit. So the Gross profit is just our cost of goods, and then the net profit includes rent, utilities, other expenses, and I kind of made a formula to put that all together. So we had over 21,000 in sales last week, a new record, so that was really cool to see, and we'll try and update that every once in a while. Now here is one of the Thornton houses I bought as a flip a few years ago. Maybe it's like 5-6 years ago. Thornton decided to sell some of their properties. Most of them, I don't know if they decided to sell them because they had gotten to a point where they couldn't be lived in anymore, but that's kind of what it seemed like. This one was lived in right up until we bought it. And you can see it wasn't so great on the outside. And maybe some people have seen these other houses and thought, oh, the outside needs a little bit of work, but maybe the inside's nice. So we will show you the inside of this property as well. And I can't remember if they cut down those trees or we did. I think they actually cut down those trees right by the house. But you can see just they let these houses go, and just some general maintenance could have prolonged the life of them by so many years, and just saved themselves so much money too. When they went to sell them, they'd be worth so much more money if they just maintained them a little bit. But again, I mean, the issue, you might run into there too is, so you can see there's peeling paint. Who knows how old that paint is? So, are these houses safe to live in? Probably, but you kind of expect government to expect you, to have safe housing as an investor and do different things. You'd expect them to want to do the same things, but that doesn't always happen. So we did a lot of work to this house. I'm trying to post the after video below in the comments. If I forget, let me know, and I'll try and get that, because we did do a lot of work. It's actually a pretty nice house after we're done. But you can see what the interior looked like. Now, some of that carpet was pulled up. I can't remember if it was by me or other investors, to see if there's hardwood underneath. There was, so that's why the carpet was pulled up. It wasn't, pulled up while they lived there, but that's one of their heat sources, just a space heater in the wall. So this house had no central heating. And then I think there's another space heater in the living room as well. That is your kitchen right there. Beautiful masterpiece of a kitchen. It did have a decent light fixture right there. So, the inside of these houses weren't exactly stellar either. As we walk through it, you can see the house is just very outdated. Who knows how old that paint is? Who knows how old the carpet is? And what also was interesting are the windows. They're so old, and peeling paint all over. But what is also interesting that I'll show here in just a second is there's your space heater right there, but there was a vent under the carpet, so it used to actually have some kind of central heating at one point in the crawl space down there, but they covered that up and stopped using it and put the space heaters in instead. So again, super old, and those will work for a very long time, but just not ideal, especially out in the country where the wind blows like crazy and has horrible windows. It's just, I'm sure this house was freezing in the bedrooms. Again, hardwood throughout, which was cool and nice surprise there. And I don't know what we bought this house for. I'll try and post this full video so you can hear what I said too, but it was not very much. I know that. There's your water heater in the hallway with no closet. Who needs that? Your bathroom, again, straight out of 1960s, maybe the 70s, who knows. Again, the windows crazy old. Your tub, which was actually a newer tub with some high quality FRP surround. And so that's kind of what Thornton's houses looked like on the inside. And I've got another one to show you here, which was a weird story too. Here's another City of Thornton house I bought. And this video looks really old because it is really old. This is one of my first YouTube videos I ever did back in like 2013. You can see the outbuildings. You can see the house here. And when I set up a showing on this property, the agent had told me, beware, the doors don't lock. There might be a squatter in there. We're not really sure. Just be very careful when showing it. And so that's just, first of all, that's not a good way to sell houses, right? First rule of thumb, if you're trying to sell a house, is secure the house and make sure there aren't possibly people living in it, right? But otherwise, it wasn't horrible, right? I've seen worse houses, It wasn't the worst inside. The outside was pretty rough, but still not, an amazing property. Again, you had some weird stuff going on with the heat, and just hadn't been updated for a very long time. But whoever lived there probably had taken pretty good care of it along the way. So again, this wasn't horrible. It actually had 2 different basements, which was weird. One there and one in the front. And yeah, we flipped this house, sold it, and it did okay on it. It was also had a very strange bathroom, but not the most amazing properties to rent. I'll leave it at that. The properties we saw weren't in the best condition. I know a lot of people who come on my page and complain about landlords and rental properties. A lot of times their solution is for the government to own all rental properties. I don't think that's a good solution. This is one reason why. And it's not even that I'm saying the government is evil or bad. It's just that the amount of manpower it takes to manage rental properties and take care of them is a lot, right? That's why there's so many different landlords. There's millions and millions of landlords. There are some hedge funds that buy them too, but they own a very small percentage, like 400,000 of 85 million homes are owned by hedge funds. So a very small percentage are owned by big companies. The vast majority of rental properties are owned by mom and pops, small investors, and they can take care of those properties and have contractors and different things and keep an eye out for them and property managers who take care of those properties. A lot of times when the government gets involved, they simply can't handle the sheer mass of properties they would have, for one thing, and then finding all the contractors, and we all know the bureaucracy that goes through with government and paying them and the costs and bidding process and all the hoops they have to jump through to get stuff done anyway. It just makes it very difficult. So the system we have actually works pretty well, and yes, prices are high, but the U.S. still has the 5th most affordable housing market in the world. So if you think it's expensive here, try going to almost any other country in the world, and it'll be way more expensive compared to what people make. The only countries ahead of us are Saudi Arabia, South Africa, and I forget the other ones, but then they have massive government funding for home buyers, and that's why their cost to live or cost to buy houses is cheaper. All right, so one thing I want to talk about too was water. Why is water so important to Colorado? There's been a huge shortage here, and the reason is they had to create a giant pipeline from the western slope of Colorado, because the Continental Divide is in Colorado, where that's the top of the United States, right? And one way water goes east and one way water goes west. Well, we're on the eastern slope. It's a very dry area. We get 12 to 14 inches of moisture a year. There's tons of farming here, tons of water needed. And so back in the 50s, or even before that, they were worked on building a pipeline from the western slope to the eastern slope that would ship water to us. And part of it's the Colorado Big Thompson project. The Big Thompson is the same river that's next to my river house. And so they ship all this water over. And the way Colorado water works is you can buy shares of water. You don't just get a used water from the river. If you're close to it, you have to own water rights, which is a share of the water. And so that water can be sold separately from property. So some people own tons of water that have lots of land, or some people own tons of water that have no land. Some people own lots of land that has no water. It's not tied to the land. So you see companies buying lots of water for oil and gas. You see cities like Thornton that bought lots of land. It's very smart of them to do that. Whether it was ethical or not is a different question, kind of taking water from a different area 50 miles away and then trying to, use it for your own city. But it was very smart of them to do that nonetheless. So water, one share of CBT, Colorado Big Thompson water right now is about $70,000. That's what you need to build a house, a regular house. When I was trying to build my laundromat, add some housing to another church property I owned, each time the town wanted 2 shares of those for me to dedicate to the town because they said it would use more water. And so water is crazy. They've stopped a lot of building in the area because North Weld County is where I'm at, has a pipeline they're trying to build, and they're arguing with Larimer County about water, and so they own enough water, but they can't get it to the right areas, so they put a halt on issuing new water taps, which slowed down building tremendously. Then there's Thornton trying to build a pipeline through Weld County and Larimer County to take water to them, and that's been in the courts and been crazy. And so water is just really tricky situation here in Colorado, and one reason why housing prices is so high, because you need so much water to build, to develop, to have new properties. So that's the story. That's what's going on up here with the Thornton houses. We'll see if they sell any more of them. I don't know if they'll sell any more to me after this, but I want to show kind of what they look like. Like I said, that's just a tiny, tiny portion of the houses they have. And you can ask other people about government housing, how that's worked out. I'm sure some are great, some work well, but they don't always work well. And a lot of times it's just, it's hard for governments to be able to handle maintaining, renting, managing properties, especially if they were to have a huge mass of them. All right, thanks for watching. Love the comments, love the likes, love the shares. Keep those coming, and be back with more videos of my actual properties here coming up soon.